Hello, everybody. My name is Gavin Pasnick, and I'm going to be presenting a topic on agenda setting in political communication. So, the textbook definition of what agenda setting is the process through which media communicate the importance or salience of issues to the public, influencing public perceptions of the most important issues facing the nation or a community. And this is in this political communication textbook on the left-hand side by Perloff, who has a quite sound understanding of political communication as a whole. Now, there's a lot of different significances interwoven in agenda setting and why it's an important topic to discuss. So, agenda setting can cultivate legislation and policy based off of the agendas created by the political leaders involved. For example, when Reagan was in office and when he created Reaganomics and when that agenda was created, we started to see legislation and policy be passed to kind of fit that certain criteria that they wanted for if they believed in Reaganomics. Influences geopolitical environment through destructive and constructive value. So what I mean by this is, on the left-hand side, here's some actual examples. So on July 6th, 2021, the Congress of America was stormed by citizens of the United States because of agenda setting, or at least that's what I believe happened. I think, because of the geopolitical climate influenced by Trump's tweets and sort of the political environment we're in, our Congress was impregnated by, citizens who believed that the government was corrupt. And this is significant because it shows the specific political climate we're in America specifically. So agenda setting can also have a profound manipulation on systematic processes such as economy, healthcare, laws, and all other political topics. And like I mentioned before, Reaganomics was a good example of this, where an agenda to create Reaganomics and trickle-down economics was in order so that corporations could fill their pockets with more money through business interactions. And because of that agenda that was set by that administration, what we see today is a system that is still very interwoven in the Reaganomics that was presented back then. Convincing persuasive techniques used to emotionally convince voters. So, for example, the Obama campaign chose the word hope as their number one kind of persuasive tactic. They believe that the administration campaign believed that if they used hope, that they could get voters so that they could create a better world for tomorrow through democracy and through political agendas associated with the Democratic Party. And also, agenda setting will change the course of history in one way or another across the entire world. This is going to happen in each and every government that has established itself, no matter the kingdom, because of the specific agenda setting that is prevalent. This can be in any sort of environment, whether it's democracy or a communist nation or a socialist nation. It doesn't matter what type of government is in power, because agenda setting is used across all platforms. So there are some cons to agenda setting, and one of them is alternative facts or lies, which can be created by a political leader to ensure voters give him the results, or she, the results that they need. Destruction of legislation, policy, and economy. So there has been an agenda to destroy and repeal Obamacare, which that word was coined by the Republican Party to villainize Obama, as well as the Affordable Care Act, in a way that made it seem like it was an issue. And in the pockets of corporations, I believe that it was an issue. So they influenced with money to get Republican leaders as well as Democratic leaders against the Affordable Care Act. I won't go into some major details there because I could really go into it, but I'm just saying the Affordable Care Act could have been a well-worthy and well-constructed act that would have enabled Medicare and Medicaid to do things that it is not doing to this day. But because the agenda was set to destroy the Affordable Care Act and coin it Obamacare and go forth and do everything possible to not allow it to function, of course it's not going to function. And of course, the proposed legislation isn't going to become systematically balanced. But I'm not going to go into that anymore. So progression by means of corruption. I previously mentioned this a little bit before, where corporate greed can kind of influence agendas that get voters to vote in politicians who get paid off by lobbyists. And another con would be that it tears citizens apart through irrational thought. And this comes from Facebook posts and media sensationalization of these specific agendas that people talk about, whether it's Republican or Democrat. It tears everyone apart. And democracy in itself becomes somewhat jeopardized. And we know this to be true because Congress was stormed. That's terrible. What that means is, the citizens are so untrusting of the government that they're willing to completely storm a Capitol simply because of their ideas. So leaders can send humanity to death. And I know that sounds very dramatic, but it's true. Leaders can take humanity in one direction or the other. And a con would be that, the agenda setting could potentially take humanity to a systematic, situation where we aren't involved in science. And this is frightening because it can create a climate crisis, which is what we are seeing today. So some pros about agenda setting, though, are that, you can create valuable policy and legislation that can help the American public. Like when Medicare was created, that was a wonderful piece of legislation, and that was an agenda that was set by the president during that time. So constructive variables, placement on information. And what I mean by this is certain facts can be created as a result of a certain agenda that is set. And these facts can be presented to the American public in a way that is, beneficial for Republican and Democrat parties, depending on what you truly believe. So another pro would be that it can bring citizens together through rational thought, which is somewhat... It depends on the person, but over big populations, what we've seen is that people can band together as a result of certain agendas and agree on things. And if the agenda is set to just kind of help everyone out, then oftentimes people will band together. So leaders can send humanity, like I mentioned before in the con, except to life instead of death for many years to come, systematic progression. And that what I mean by that is like leaders have the opportunity to influence history, no matter the kingdom. They can choose whether to bring us into a world that is worthy of compassion and systematic progression, what I mean by that is like creating legislation that is, constructed for the citizens of the kingdom itself or the country. Yeah. And then in conclusion, agenda setting is important and must be understood in order to bring positive change to light. And geopolitics are influenced by the agenda set by political leaders. And plots within the agenda setting can be good or bad and will change the course of human history, whether you want to believe it or not. So that's why everyone should be educated on the subject, is because agenda setting is directly correlated with your future and my future and everyone's future, depending on, what's written into law and what's written into legislation and what have you. And then on top of that, it'll influence systematic change through economy. It'll allow for science to keep moving forward and allow for, food shortages to be dealt with and climate crises to be dealt with. It all gravitates towards, these political leaders who truly have some power and say in what ends up happening to entire populations. All right. And then this is the textbook that I referred to in the first slide with the definition. And thanks for listening.